After several paranormal experiences in their home, the Toller family invites John Drenner Jr., founder of Glen Burnie Ghosthunters, to investigate.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Sure, I'm here to help.
The second I walked through that doorway, it felt like I had walked through a brick wall. The pressure was intense. The feeling that you got was overwhelming.
When John came over, I was pretty nervous to find out what he was going to find.
So tell me what's been going on.
Well, it started with footsteps and then tapping. Tap, 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 always like that.
The tapping were coming in threes, which led me to believe it was demonic. And 3 is the number of the Holy Trinity that they are making a mockery of. Amanda and Colin were often very tired, mainly because this entity was feeding off of them. The way that demons work is that they will use you like a battery. They will drain you, make you tired, to break you down physically, mentally, and spiritually to where they can invade. Scratches are a main indication of a demonic presence because human spirits don't have that type of power.
What you're experiencing is likely not a human spirit. It sounds like a demon.
A demon?
John said that demons work by trying to wear you down, and their ultimate goal was to possess you or take your body over.
What can we do?
I want to do a walkthrough of the house.
No. 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 No.
Who's this?
This is our son, Colin. Colin, this is John.
Hello. No, I don't want to. No.
Colin was interacting with this unseen force. And I asked him, I said, who are you talking to and who are you playing with? He was afraid.
Hey, Colin. Who are you talking to?
A man.
Man. What's his name?
Rhodocon.
Colin voices the name of the demon, Rhodocon.
There is no way that he would have known that demon's name unless that demon had told him himself.
Okay, buddy. I'll see you later. Amanda, Colin has just said the name of a demon. Now, this is very important. No one in this family must ever repeat that name. Naming it gives it more power.
God.
Is everything okay?
Colin is at risk. We need to cleanse the house now.
To know that my son was communicating with a demon was just terrifying, just heartbreaking to know that I don't have control over this, and this demon could make him do anything. It was just really scary.
The reason it gave Colin his name is because it wanted to take advantage of an innocent child. It wanted to be invited in. What I feared that would happen to Colin next if that demon remained in the house is that he would undergo a possession.
John prepares sage to cleanse the entire house in the hopes that he can chase the demon away.
By the might of God, in the name of all that is holy, come down, warrior angels, and cast out these demons. Drive them away from this home, this family, and seal off this home from all that is unholy.
He started reading prayers.
By the might of God, in the name of all that is holy, come down, warrior angels, and cast out these demons.
It was so heavy in the house that it was hard to breathe.
By the might of God, in the name of all that is holy, come down, warrior angels, and cast out these demons. Drive them away from this home, this family, and seal off this home from all that is unholy.
Once the blessing was over, the house felt a lot lighter, and it seemed like it was gone.
John said, "How do you feel in here?" I said, "It feels good in here. I can breathe."
That's it. The last room is cleansed.
I feel a difference already.
We had hopes that we could get this thing cleared up to where we could stay there.
Bill and Amanda are relieved to have the cleansing behind them. But now Colin appears to be frightened once again.
We were getting ready for work, and Colin was on the bed, and he would not look at Bill.
You okay, Colin? Colin, look at me.
No.
What's the matter, buddy?
Scary man. He's on the walls.
Colin referred to them as monsters, and there was one that he said it's in the wall.
I could feel that something was around me.
Is he behind me?
Bill and Amanda Toller thought they cleansed their house of an evil demon. But when their son Colin sees it inside the wall, it's become apparent they were very wrong.
Is he behind me?
No!
I felt like, oh my God.
He was terrified. I felt more of an urgency to try to protect him, but I didn't know how because this is something that I can't see.
Feeling that there is safety in numbers, Bill and Amanda move the three boys into their bedroom.
Okay, last one.
We decided that we weren't going to let the kids sleep upstairs anymore because it was just too dangerous.
Earlier that evening, Bill talked with sons Byron and Corey.
Thanks, Dad.
I asked them if they felt anything weird in the house or heard noises that they couldn't explain. They said, yeah, that they would hear like stuff go up and down the hallway. They said they felt like something was always outside the door.
How long are we going to live like this?
Only a couple days, buddy. We're getting help. It's okay. It's okay.
You could still hear footsteps upstairs. And we're talking 5 people all in one room, knowing that there's nobody upstairs.
It's okay, buddy, all right?
Once again, the family calls in paranormal investigator John Drenner Jr. This time he brings along additional support, an expert on demons.
I called him in because I thought he would have a better grasp on what we were dealing with and how we could better attack it.
Once I went inside, I had some strange feelings about the place. Something kept drawing me to the basement.
Downstairs, investigators detect paranormal energy.
Mike, over here. You feel it?
A portal.
Portal is a passage that entities travel from one world to the next. And they do this so they can have a quick exit and a quick entrance.
Suddenly, Mike detects a new energy.
Bill? Is this yours?
Yeah, I keep all my tools down here.
There's a very dark energy surrounding this bag. Where have you been working with this bag?
He told me that he's a contractor and he was doing some work in a prison, particularly death row. And that's where these tools have been. They've been sitting in death row for weeks on end.
The bag was kept in the room where they used to execute the prisoners.
And he was bringing these tools into the house. And that's when I said, now I have the connection. There seemed to be something attaching itself to the tools.
He said that that was pretty much probably where this thing it came from. He felt like I brought it back.
Can you take the tools out of the bag?
Mike further explains that once inside the house, the demon opened a portal. To protect the family from further harm, the tools must be blessed and the portal sealed.
The tools are electrical tools. Anything magnetic can draw any type of entity because they live in a magnetic world.
Dear Lord, in Jesus' name, please bless these tools that they may not again be used as a conduit for entities to come between one threshold and another. Thank you, Lord. Amen. By God's mighty power, I cast out all demons and call on God's warrior angels to come carry all evil entities back to their source. In God's holy name, I bind and seal this doorway to hell. In Jesus' name, amen.
Once we did the blessing, I sensed that the portal was closed.
We need to move on to the rest of the house.
For days, everything is calm. The house is quiet. The Tollers believe they finally have their house and their lives back.
The last blessing that we had, I truly felt that this is going to help, that we're going to be able to live here and be able to live our lives normal. Good job.
You immediately seen the difference in Colin and Amanda. Amanda wasn't sleeping as much as she was, and Colin was back to acting full of energy.
more a haunting. Visit destinationamerica.com. Amanda Toller is hopeful that paranormal investigators have cleansed her home of an evil entity. But just when she thinks it's safe,
What's wrong, honey? Did you have a nightmare?
The scary man pushed me.
What scary man?
The car hit me.
Colin had woke up crying, and he said that he had a really bad dream. A man had pushed him into the road, and he was hit by a car.
Bill. Oh my God, Colin just had a nightmare that someone killed him. His description was too gory and detailed for a child his age. Bill, I'm scared.
What? Listen, get out of the house now. I'm at a psychic's office.
I'll explain later. Just get Colin to the sitter and...
Get over here now. Text you the address.
Oh, okay, all right. Come on, buddy. Bill, what's going on?
I was driving by here and I just got this gut feeling that I needed to come inside.
I remember riding down the road and looking up and just seeing a sign, and I had a feeling like I need to go in here.
Tell my wife what you told me.
Don't take your children back to the house. It's too dangerous.
What?
Your son had a nightmare about his death, right?
Yes. How did you know?
It was a man pushing him in front of a car. It wasn't a nightmare. It's a threat from an evil entity in your house.
Did you tell her about his dream?
No. She told me and then you called.
The psychic had told us about this dream that she already knew about even before we told her.
Yeah, that was definitely confirmation that whatever was there was real, and whatever he had dreamt about was a warning.
I know you love and care for your son deeply. Don't take him back to the house. He's in mortal danger.
I felt that the children were in danger, and our whole family was in danger, and it was not safe to be there anymore.
they both agree. Their dream is now a nightmare. Amanda takes the children to stay with a relative, while Bill must return to collect his tools for work.
What was that? Did you hear?
Let's just get this loaded and get out of here, please.
We were getting the scaffold and stuff out of the backyard, and we were hearing, like, tapping on the glass.
Bill?
At that point, I said, let's keep going. Let's just hurry up and get this stuff and get out of here.
Whatever's in there can stay in there.
You gotta tell me twice.
All right, that's yours. You good with that?
The Tollers never spend another night in the home and begin to rebuild their dreams in a nearby town.
When Bill and I drove away from the house for the very last time, it was a moment of relief to know that it was over, it was done, and we weren't going to look back ever again.
We bought a house. Everything's pretty normal. No weird feelings, no anxiety. Everything felt like it should.
It changed my life. Before I was atheist, and then this whole thing changed my view. I believe in God now from that whole experience.
All right, let's stack these boxes up and we'll go for another one, okay?
Definitely opened my eyes that there's things out there that just, it's not as cut and dry as a lot of movies and stuff make it seem. It's a lot more real when you're there.
Okay.
It's kind of like being in a glass box. Like, you can see everything around you, but you can't get out of it. You feel like you're stuck.
The tollers have moved on, but demons never die. A family settles into their suburban dream life when a dark energy invades their home.
Something was watching me. You felt it almost breathing on you.
Evil lurks behind every corner.
Scary man, he's in the walls.
I could feel that something was around me.
And no one rests in peace.
It wasn't a nightmare. It's a threat.
In America, there is real evil. It lurks in the darkest shadows and in our most ordinary towns. Between the worlds we see
Someone's in my room.
and the things we fear, there are doors. When they are open, nightmares become reality.
All right, guys. Let's wrap it up for the night.
No argument from me.
Me neither.
In 2013, Bill Toller, a brick mason, takes on a job at the state penitentiary.
I was starting my own contracting business and doing bricks and remodeling. We had one really big job, which was the jail. The tools had to be away from the inmates. So where we kept our tools at was death row.
Hey, has anybody ever told you guys that we're standing in the execution chamber? Well, the former execution chamber. For nearly 20 years, prisoners were put to death right where we're standing.
He says the gurney that you're using is actually where people have died on that gurney from lethal injection. It was kind of creepy.
Interesting.
Dang it.
You okay?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm okay. Let's just get out of here.
But this is not the only big project in Bill's life. He has just moved his family to the suburbs.
We were moving from Baltimore, from a little row home to Pasadena. Pasadena is a quiet, family-oriented community. Kind of like waterfront type people, always on the water, fishing, crabbing. Definitely a good place to raise kids.
Rudy the tugboat was shiny and new, ready to set sail on the ocean blue.
Waiting for Bill at home is his wife Amanda and their son Colin.
To be part of it all.
When Bill and I arrived at the house, we both knew that it was perfect for us. It was a lot of room.
Chug, chug, chug. Chug, chug, chug. Moving out to sea went the little tug.
Daddy!
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Yeah? Good.
Colin's a big ball of energy. Rough, tough, typical boy.
How was your day?
It was good. Long, tired.
What happened to your finger?
Oh, I'm sore. No big deal. Hey, guys.
Dad, you're leaving.
Yeah. Yeah, Mom's waiting.
Bill also has 2 sons from a previous relationship, Byron and Corey, who stay with him part of the time.
Well, tell your mom I said hi, and listen, behave yourselves.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You're just a normal, average family.
I'll see you later, okay?
See ya.
Have a good week, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. All right, where were we?
Bill's new business is booming, but it's a mixed blessing.
My work was pretty crazy. We were working like 18-hour days. We had a couple different jobs going each day. I would get up around 6:30-ish, be out the door by 7:30. It wasn't unusual to see me come home at 2:30 in the morning. You make the sacrifices for your family so you can have things in life that you normally wouldn't have. It's life sometimes.
Most days, it's up to Amanda to manage the running of the home alone.
Not long after we moved in, maybe one of the first few weeks that we were there, Bill was working as usual. I was in the living room. I heard little tapping noises, and I wasn't too sure what to make of it.
Weird.
The tapping would be the corner, top corner, it could be the left, the right. It was so random, it wasn't one area.
Bill?
I kept hearing my name. It was like a whisper. It was in the hallway, and then it got closer to my ear. I thought, okay, well, Bill's home.
Bill!
I kept listening, and it would stop. I knew what I heard. I was like 100% sure that someone was there. I just knew I wasn't alone.
Amanda decides to keep what she's heard to herself.
Bill, do you hear that?
Hang on.
Bill and I were in bed late at night. We both heard footsteps upstairs.
We knew that there was nobody up there because Colin was asleep and the boys were with their mom. And we sat there and listened. We could hear it walking from one room to the next and down the hallway.
Someone's in the house.
Go check it out.
Fearing for his family's safety, Bill grabs a gun he keeps locked away for protection.
Honey, be careful.
I will.
So I went upstairs and checked everything out, all the doors and windows. there was nothing up there.
A few days after moving into a new home, Amanda Toller begins hearing strange noises and sends her husband to search for the intruder.
I grabbed my gun and went downstairs and checked everything out. We had a panoramic picture, 18 inches tall, 4 foot wide. That picture comes off the wall, hits the desk, flips to the left, and lands about 6 feet away. And I had hung it really good. I smacked the wall and everything to make sure that picture wasn't going to fall because it's canvas. It should have stopped right when it fell and hit the desk. There was nothing to give it a different motion.
What's that noise?
The picture fell.
What was going on upstairs?
Nothing. Colin was sound asleep and all the doors and windows were locked.
Are you sure? I heard it. We heard it.
I don't know what it was. Sometimes houses creak and make noise.
In my head, I'm thinking, it's nothing. It's gotta be something settling or something.
But Amanda still feels the events are unexplainable.
The footsteps, the whispering, the tapping happened all the time. Every day I knew that something was watching me. If I walked down the hallway, it was right on my back. If I went to the kitchen, it was next to me or right behind me. You felt it almost breathing on you. And I would always turn around, and nothing was there.
How was your day? Just okay? You feeling a little tired? Here, sit with Mommy. I'm a little tired too.
Over the next few weeks, Amanda and her son Colin begin to feel their energy being drained.
Let's just take a little nap, okay?
We get home around 5 o'clock, and as soon as we got in the door,
A man comes across his father's war memorabilia.
Get rid of it. I don't want that in my house.
And awakens the spirits of soldiers with unfinished business.
My father didn't really get into any of the blood and gore of what happened.
Revenge is in the air, in the ultimate battle between good and evil.
You can't breathe, you can't get away. You don't know which way to go.
In America, there is real evil. It lurks in the darkest shadows and in our most ordinary towns. Between the worlds we see
Someone's in my room.
and the things we fear, there are doors. When they are opened, nightmares become reality. In 2009, Debbie and Dennis Pongratz move into a home in a small town.
We just wanted to retire to a place that was quiet, someplace where we could just relax.
We wanted to be in a place that had a different feel than the big city, in our retirement years. Easygoing, atmosphere.
The house looked small from the outside, but when you got inside, it looked a lot bigger.
Hey, Dennis?
What are you doing in here?
I'm trying to get these supplies back onto the craft table in the house.
Okay.
The house had so much room, so Dennis could have his own space and I could have my own craft room for woodworking and sewing, a little of repurposing. I do a little bit of everything.
I'd do without you.
I'm sure you'd find somebody to help you carry these boxes in. Got it?
Yep.
What was that?
The spilled contents of the box once belonged to Dennis's deceased father, John, who served as an American soldier during World War II. Dennis hasn't seen the old mementos in many years.
Did you know we had all this stuff?
Honestly, I forgot all about it. When Mom died, they gave me all these boxes, and I just put them in the garage. Didn't really want to deal with it. But now,
I didn't take a very good look at the things that were in the box until we moved down to Corning, and I found several of his medals. There were campaign ribbons for battles in Western Europe. Also, he had some things that he brought back from the war.
When he went through the box, it's like it just brought it all to life. He remembered each thing he picked up of his dad speaking about that. And it just kind of brought all of it back to him.
Look at all these medals. You never told me your dad was such a decorated soldier.
he'd tell me stories when I was a kid. I tried to ask him for details, but he would just clam up. Different times, I guess.
My father, he didn't really get into any of the hardships or the blood and gore of what happened around him in the war.
Dennis, why do we have that?
The sight of the swastika makes Debbie uneasy.
It's awful. Why would your dad even keep something like that?
It's just what they did back then. It's like a trophy or something.
My father told me that he acquired the armband off of a dead Nazi soldier, which I guess that happened quite a bit during the war.
Get rid of it. I don't want that in my house.
Debbie, these are old. They're antiques. They're probably worth something.
I don't care. I'm serious. It creeps me out.
Buried among the reminders of loss and valor, Dennis finds a touching surprise.
I found a decorative box, and it had letters in it that my father had sent to my mother when he was stationed in Iceland. This was before they were married. Most of it was just, how much I love you and things like that.
I've been gone for 6 months. If I want to go out and have a drink, then I can.
For Dennis, the letters are a sharp contrast to his childhood memories.
When I was growing up, my parents had a rocky relationship. It was pretty volatile. My father, he had a temper. I really think that he suffered from PTSD. He went through hell over there.
But if I want to leave, then I can leave!
I was really surprised about the letters that he had sent to my mom when he was in the service. At that point in time, you could see that they both really loved each other.
After rediscovering a box of World War II relics, Dennis Pongratz has renewed appreciation for his father's military service.
Looking at my father's Army memorabilia, I really did have more of a sense of pride for my father and what he did. He was kind of a hero, and I didn't realize that until I became a certain age to, I guess, appreciate that.
Debbie?
Yeah?
Have you seen that armband?
The one with the swastika on it? No. I thought I told you to put that away.
Well, I was going to, but I hadn't gone to it yet, and now I can't seem to find it.
Well, it's just as well. I really didn't want that in the house anyway.
At some point, I discovered that the Nazi armband was missing, and I checked through every box in there and even in the closet where they were, in case it fell out. And it's a mystery.
We could not find the armband. It's just gone.
Well, it's got to be around here somewhere.
Honey, don't worry. I'm sure it's going to show up. All right? Don't worry. I got to go get ready.
Okay.
Went in the bathroom to take a shower.
Dennis, is that you?
There was a cross on my bathroom mirror, and it looked like frost. I'd never seen anything like it. It was just very strange. My immediate reaction was to get the camera because I wanted to make sure I got that shot of that cross.
is?
Debbie, yeah, what?
Look.
Is that a cross? How'd that get there?
I don't know. I was just getting out of the shower, and it was right there in the mirror.
When I saw the cross in the mirror, I didn't know what to think. I mean, it's not something you see every day.
It kind of looks like...
Like what?
Looks like the cross the German soldiers wore in World War II.
The cross reminded me of the Iron Cross of the Nazi regime.
What do you think that means?
I don't know.
I got some pictures.
Did you get pictures?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, good.
It wasn't something that I easily dismissed because you get a little unnerved. You gotta wonder where it is coming from.
Despite feeling unsettled, Debbie tells herself that the appearance of the cross is a good omen.
I'm trying to make myself feel better about what that cross meant. I thought you could think it was protection.
While Dennis is not convinced it means anything.
I was a little freaked out about it, but not to a point where I was hysterical or anything like that. We just thought it was, strange or weird. We kind of brushed it off and just went on from there.
That weekend, Debbie gets an unexpected visitor.
My granddaughter had called and asked me if I could watch my great-grandson. And I said, sure, bring him out.
You doing okay, Jeffrey?
He loves coming to Grandma's house. He'll run from one end to the other, and he plays. He's like a normal child.
Can I have something to eat?
How's peanut butter and jelly sound?
Yummy.
Okay.
Out of the blue, I started getting cigarette smoke, just like someone was blowing it in my face. I have never been a smoker. I have always been extremely sensitive to cigarette smoke. I sneeze a lot when I'm around someone that's smoking. It was horribly strong. I could not figure out where that smell was coming from. It was really strange.
Hey, you look like one of my toys. Want to play with me? Hey, what are you doing? Those are the good guys. Stop!
When Jeffrey comes to visit his great-grandmother, a mysterious stranger challenges him to a game of war.
I went to the other end of the house, and A couple minutes after that, he just started screaming.
Jeffrey! What's wrong? Are you okay? What happened?
My granddaughter came to pick him up.
What's going on? I don't know. He was playing with his toys just fine when I went to go make him some lunch, and then he just started screaming.
He said that he's seen a man in our house. You couldn't get him to move. When you talked to him, he wouldn't budge. It was like he was in a daze.
Look, I better take him home.
Out of the blue, I seen this dark, shadowy figure looking out our window. It startled me.
Oh, come on.
I only seen it for a second. It was gone.
What happened?
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. We have to talk. Earlier today, I was watching Jeffrey, and then I went to go make him a sandwich, and everything was fine. And then he started screaming, and then all of a sudden he went running outside of the house. The poor kid was terrified.
She was pretty freaked out, about it. Just not knowing the source or what it meant.
He kept saying something about this bad man or something inside the house. The poor little boy, he was so scared, honey.
Calm down.
No.
Take a breath.
No.
Sweetheart, what?
There's something going on in this house.
Sweetie.
You don't always want to think, okay, it's paranormal, but you really can't dismiss it at that point.
What?
Take a look at this.
There was one picture of the front of our house with a very large man's face looking out our window. For me to be able to actually see something in a photo that I took, that was proof to me that we weren't crazy, that there was something there.
I definitely saw a shadowy figure, and I didn't know what to think about that because, that was something completely different than knocks or bangs or shadows, and because now we've got something that's right there.
Dennis reacted the same way I did. He was just trying to figure out what it could be, and we didn't know if it was something we needed to be afraid of. I knew something wasn't right about this house, and it was very serious to have scared my great-grandson the way it did.
But unbeknownst to the couple, a new ghost has entered the home and is ready for battle.
I did.
One night we heard this loud banging. It was so loud that it woke us up, like someone was pounding their fist against the wall.
Whoever's in there, I've called the cops.
It didn't make any sense, but there was no one else in the house.
In the dead of night, an unexplained commotion
I did.
awakens Dennis and Debbie Pongratz.
Whoever's in there, I've called the cops.
We just started hearing like banging noises, kind of like if somebody was pounding on a wall with their fist.
Although Dennis does not see physical evidence of the intense struggle, he can feel its aftermath.
With all the things that had happened up to that point, the only conclusion that I could come to was paranormal activity in the house.
Dennis, is everything okay?
I don't know.
Are you all right?
I don't know. I just heard this banging, and it was like it was right next to my head. This is just crazy.
Your mind goes in all directions. You don't know what to think. You don't know if you should try to get help. You're afraid of who to even ask.
It was a concern at that point that how far is it going to go? We just hoped that the activity didn't become going to go. We just hoped that the activity didn't become dangerous or destructive or anything like that.
We're trying to keep us as calm as we possibly can, when all this is going on, because when you're living with this much confusion in your house, you pretty much have to figure out how to deal with it.
But even in the light of day, Debbie can't help but feel on edge.
In your own home, a place where it's supposed to be serene, you're supposed to feel comfortable there because that's your space. And you feel like your space is being invaded by something you can't see. And you wonder if you're going to be able to get away from that. All of a sudden, I felt my hair being pulled. It felt like somebody was standing behind me. The only thing that came into my mind was just run the other way. I have a claustrophobia issue, so I always make sure that there's an exit. Come on! Come on! Come on! Come on! The door handle was just violently shaking back and forth, like someone was trying to get in. I didn't want to get any closer to that door, not knowing what was on the other side. Was engulfing me, like it was just sucking the air out of me. You can't breathe, you can't get away, you don't know which way to go. It just feels like everything's closing in.
For months, Debbie Pongratz has lived with paranormal activity in her home. One day, events escalate out of control.
Debbie! Debbie, the door's locked! Debbie, oh my God! Oh my God, are you okay? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Are you okay? Oh my God.
It's frightening because you just didn't feel safe. You just felt like something was everywhere, just all around you. And you wonder if you're going to be able to get away from that.
It was choking me. I don't know what I wanted to do, but it was trying to kill me. What?
Something was, suffocating her. I was concerned for her safety. How far is it going to go?
What are we gonna do?
I don't know. But we'll figure this out.
We just thought, who's gonna be next? We had to get somebody in there to help us with this.
Debbie and Dennis reach out to experts at Paravisions Paranormal.
This is my wife, Debbie.
The Pongratz actually were experiencing a lot of things. There was something going on in their home that they had no control of. And I knew in my heart that I had the tools and the abilities to help them out.
Thank you so much for coming.
It's okay. When we arrived, I saw Debbie, and she just broke down crying and was shaken so bad that she reached over and hugged me and said, "Lee, I'm so glad you and your team are here." Look around.
When the team came, it was like a weight lifted off of our shoulders. We knew that they could get rid of whatever was in the house.
Jim Wilson is the tech expert on the team.
Hey, Lee, take a look at this.
I immediately was trying to collect evidence, and the K2 meter was going absolutely crazy. I looked over at Lee to be like, "We have something right now. Let's get it going."
Deb Lance, a medium, senses a presence in the room.
Deb brings that ability to sense the spirit a lot stronger. She's like our center eye, and this spirit was trying to make connection with Deb as her demeanor started to change.
I felt eyes on me, and the energy was very overwhelming. I immediately saw a man in spirit form in military uniform. The gentleman told me he was Dennis's father, John.
And he appears to have something urgent to communicate.
Do you have a message for your family? Is there something you want to tell us? Why are you here?
Why don't you go have a seat in the other room?
I began to channel John's energy so I could accurately convey the message. And his message was a warning, but he was coming from a place of protecting the family, not trying to harm them. I did not anticipate him jumping into my physical body. It's as if I'm watching a movie.
Tab?
And I'm the star in the movie, but someone else is using my body.
This spirit was trying to use her as a vessel to communicate.
There was a noticeable change in her. She became very angry, very agitated, very strong-willed. It was not the Deb that we know. She became a whole different person.
Deb, is you okay? Are you still with us?
When I was channeling John, I felt immense emotions, intense anger. I felt amped up. I felt very protective. I felt angry. I felt everything all combined in one big emotion.
Suddenly, Lee, a psychic empath himself, can also sense the spirit of John.
I could sense the energy change. There was a presence of a male that was trying to get my attention. And I saw a young soldier in a World War II uniform.
No! I'm gonna kill you, you bastard!
He was coming to me very angry, screaming at the top of his lungs, being very demanding.
Take it easy! Get out of my house! Leave my family alone! Wait!
For more haunting, visit destinationamerica.com. While conducting an investigation in the Pongratz home, the body of psychic Deb Lance is overtaken by a spirit.
Deb, is you okay? Are you still with us?
No! I'm gonna kill you, you bastard! Take it easy! Get out of my house! Leave my family alone! Wait!
Lee, also a psychic empath, suddenly becomes aware of a second spirit in the house.
He was looking straight through me at something else behind me. And I realized it was a Nazi soldier. And that is what the other World War II soldier was addressing his aggression to. The energy between these two spirits was a hate. You've got a World War II U.S. Army soldier, you've got a Nazi soldier, and they were targeting each other.
Then, in an instant, the ghost of the Nazi soldier disappears.
That dark energy, I felt it slowly just, disintegrate. And as that was disintegrating, I could feel that the World War II soldier's energy was more relaxed, more calm.
When I was done channeling John, and when he left my physical body, and everything was at peace. John was at peace. For me, it was like I woke up from a dream.
We know that this has been, it's been confusing for both of you. But we've made contact with two spirits here today who've taken up residence in your home. One of whom was sent here to protect you. A soldier. Your father.
Lee confirms that he too experienced the spirit of John Pongratz.
I was like, right here, this is the guy that's here in this home.
This is him. Your father, is that right?
Lee had pointed out my father in the picture, and I was really surprised at that. I mean, I didn't think that was my wildest dreams that my father would be there.
Yes, that's my father, John. He was a good man. But I just don't understand.
Your father's presence wasn't here to hurt or scare you. There's another ghost in the house. Ghost of a Nazi soldier. It was that entity that was tormenting you both.
Lee explains why the spirit of Dennis's father had returned.
During World War II, John had shot a Nazi soldier, and he took a couple of his items. And Dennis pulled these out, and I think that's what triggered that energy, that dark Nazi energy, to come back, is he wanted his things back. John was there to protect the family.
This other ghost, the Nazi soldier, where is he?
I assured them that the Nazi soldier is gone. He's been expelled. He's never coming back. It's over.
Dennis, your father, John, he saved you.
Wait. It's not over. I'm sensing John's presence here with us now. He's saying something about letters?
John gave me the message that he needed these letters found. He wanted to know where these letters were.
Dennis, he says you know.
Letters. Yes, I know what he's talking about.
I thought about the letters that we had in this decorative box. Letters that he had sent to my mom when he was in the service.
Here, these are, this is what he's talking about, the letters that he wrote my mother during World War II.
They're very, very deeply personal letters that John had written to his wife. He was really tied to these letters, and he truly did love his wife.
As we started to open up this box of letters, I felt this lightness in the air. John was going towards the light. I knew that this was the closure that he was looking for, that this is what it was all about, so he could actually cross over. That's what John wanted, was to be back with his wife.
I felt really relieved that my father was at peace, and I do believe that my father really did love my mother, and my mother really did love my father. They did have a rough, rocky marriage, but, you know, in the end, it was important for him to be with my mother. I felt really good that they were back together again. It's given me a sense of closure, and I have more respect and love for him now, than I did.
Looking back at this case, what sticks out to me is it started out bad. It started out as this World War II soldier was going after this Nazi, and it ended in like a love story.
The couple have survived their brush with the supernatural. Now, months later, their lives have finally returned to normal.
This experience for me, myself, was life-changing. There was a lot of things that I had happen to me that really frightened me, things I couldn't explain. This gave me a sense of there is an explanation for most things that happen, but it's also given me insight to the other side.
I would say To people that don't believe in the paranormal, there's another world there around us. They just need to open up a little bit to possibilities.
For Dennis, this experience has given him insight into the paranormal world. That the battle between good and evil continues, even after we're gone.
I don't have any doubts that there are things out there that we don't know about, just because of my experiences with paranormal activity in our house. They're there.
Hollywood, the glitz and glamour capital of the world. The mere mention of her name evokes images of the stars and starlets of a bygone era. But beneath the colorful facade lies a darker side of Tinseltown. A swirling mist of shrouded figures and weightless phantoms who've returned from the grave for an encore performance. From the nightclubs and barrooms where they once gathered, to the shadowy graveyard where they are supposed to rest for eternity, the ghosts of movie lands past are alive and well in haunted Hollywood. Stories of the supernatural, fact or fiction. Through a veil of sightings and encounters, we catch a glimpse of our historical past on our journey through haunted history. Hollywood. It is a city that began as a dream that lured thousands of restless souls to Southern California seeking fame, fortune, and immortality. Most never made it. Only a select few were able to climb to the top. Matinee idols whose success ushered in the era of gala premieres and the romance, excitement, and mystique of the Hollywood star.
They were giants. When you think of the film business starting from nothing right here and showing people on a screen 50 feet high, it made them seem immortal, number one, and it made them certainly larger than life.
But the climb to immortality was never easy and was often accompanied by tragedy. For film stars such as silent heartthrob Rudolph Valentino and America's sweetheart Marilyn Monroe, life ended far too soon, and at the peak of their young careers. Many believed the pain and suffering of so many people, those who made it and those who didn't, has turned Hollywood into one of the most haunted places in America.
Hollywood's definitely haunted, without a doubt. We've been conducting investigations here for a number of years and have found that, believe it or not, you know, from studios to hotels to restaurants, there's a lot of activity here.
Of all the ghostly realms in this movie town, none is more historic or haunted than the Roosevelt Hotel on Hollywood Boulevard. The Roosevelt was built in 1927 by Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks Sr. It was the first luxury hotel in Hollywood and was designed to cater more to movie stars than to tourists. Each room was lavishly furnished and featured a private bath, a rarity for a 1920s hotel. The hotel cemented its reputation as the center of Hollywood society when its famed Blossom Ballroom became the scene of the first Academy Awards banquet in 1929. The master of ceremonies was the hotel's co-owner, Douglas Fairbanks. That night, Oscars were presented to Janet Gaynor, Emil Jannings, and Victor Fleming. The grand ceremony lasted only 10 minutes. Then, in 1985, a major renovation project at the hotel seemed to awaken the spirits of some of its legendary guests. The most widely reported has been Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe stayed here a lot. If you drive around Hollywood, you'll see lots of homes with the sign Marilyn Monroe lived here. She owned many, many homes in Hollywood, but in between the designing or decorating of those homes, she would always come and stay here. I think it was her favorite spot.
When Marilyn died in August of 1962, millions mourned the loss of one of Hollywood's most beloved and tormented souls.
Marilyn Monroe's death was terribly shocking and very sad. Orphaned, abused, lost, miscarriages, failed marriages. There seemed to be nothing happy in this woman's life. And at 36, although she was internationally famous, she apparently ended her life with a bottle of pills alone in her room.
But even in death, Marilyn's grip on the Roosevelt remains strong. Many believe that her spirit still returns to her favorite spot at the hotel. This is the Roosevelt's pool. It was here that Marilyn earned her first dollar in Hollywood, posing for a photo session as a youthful model. Witnesses have been startled to behold the transparent image of a blonde woman appearing by the pool in the late hours of the afternoon just before dusk. Some are convinced that it is indeed Marilyn, still posing for a photographer that only she sees. If this is true, perhaps her spirit is somehow drawn here by her fans.
If people are still grieving for Marilyn Monroe, though her spirit may want to travel off to wherever it is that spirits go, her spirit may not be free to make that journey.
A chilling vision of Marilyn is also seen in the hotel's lower lobby. It is a haunting somehow linked to this mirror, a mirror that once hung in the starlet's favorite suite. The apparition was first described by a hotel employee in 1985. She was drawn toward the mirror when she noticed that it was smudged.
And as she's polishing it, she sees a blonde woman in the mirror. And she just thought someone had come up behind her. She turned around to talk to the woman, but no one was there. And she turned back to the mirror, and clearly there was a blonde woman's image in this mirror. And when she really looked at it, it was Marilyn Monroe. Looking in the mirror, fixing her makeup, primping with her hair, as she must have done hundreds of times before.
But Marilyn is not the only spirit that seems to linger at the Roosevelt. It is in the Blossom Ballroom, scene of the first Academy Awards, that guests and employees alike report another series of disturbing paranormal events.
It's definitely in this area. You can just... When I first felt it, I didn't really feel the coldness. I felt the surge.
Regina Russell, the hotel's catering manager, is standing in the Blossom Room's mysterious cold spot.
Okay, well, the cold spot, they say here at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, is kind of a porthole where spirits transport in and out from the, I guess you could say, underworld or whatever it is that they call it, into our world.
In the past, parapsychologist Barry Taff has come face to face with real ghosts, including the entity, the haunting that became the basis for a Hollywood movie. But his research at the Roosevelt Hotel is yet to explain this chilling phenomenon.
Now, cold spots are hard to explain because they're not always measurable by instrumentation, but they're perceivable by people. And you go into an environment, the heat may be on, no cold present, no drafts, but suddenly you enter a confined, restricted space, and it's demonstrably colder than the surrounding area. And this has been experienced in this particular room.
It's a real energy surge here. I don't know, you kind of get the jibbies from it.
Regina Russell has also come face to face with an unearthly specter. Regina Russell has also come face to face with an unearthly specter. The Blossom Room's mysterious man in black.
I was cutting through the ballroom to get to the employee parking lot, I didn't look around to see if there was anybody in here, but I felt it present. And as I turned my head to look over to see if anybody was here, there was a gentleman standing, I guess you could say, in the dead center of the room, but towards the back. I stopped in my tracks, and my heart started racing, and I said, "Oh, you scared me." And he just looked at me and said in a very monotone voice, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." And with that, I said, "Okay, goodbye." And I just left. You know, I honestly believe it was a spirit that came out of the porthole in the ballroom.
Spirits are also said to inhabit the upstairs corridors at the Roosevelt. Reports of sudden visions and disembodied voices abound. On the 9th floor, guests are often disturbed by one of the Roosevelt's most famous deceased patrons.
Montgomery Clift stayed at the Hollywood Roosevelt when he was shooting From Here to Eternity. He stayed there for 3 months in room 928, and room 928 is at the end of a short corridor. He would walk the length of that corridor up and down, rehearsing his lines, studying his script. Also for this role, he needed to learn how to play the bugle. And he would practice the bugle in room 928, much to the consternation of other fellow residents in the hotel.
Even though he died in 1966, the ghost of movie star Montgomery Clift has apparently stayed for eternity.
People who rent that room often hear someone playing the trumpet, sort of in the distance, but not really. They can't quite figure out where it's from, and they'll call down and complain to the front desk. The front desk is so used to getting this complaint that sometimes they'll play a game with them, asking them to go in the corridor and see if they can tell where it's coming from. Of course, when they go in the corridor, there is no sound in the corridor.
Unexplained sounds, mysterious visions, ghosts of the silver screen. When we return, we'll explore another Hollywood landmark only a mile away that is said to be teeming with phantom spirits. The crypts of Hollywood's oldest cemetery.
We now return to Haunted History.
The mystery of death and what lies beyond its veil can be unsettling, unpredictable, and terrifying. In Hollywood, that mystery lies among the crypts and tombstones of a 100-year-old graveyard, the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Kay Armour is project historian here.
Well, there are 80,000 people buried here, and certainly room for more. Some of the names go back to the founders of Hollywood itself.
To walk among its tombstones, crypts, and monuments is to journey backwards in time. To recall the permanent residents that include Gone with the Wind's Hattie McDaniel, gangster Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, Tyrone Power, and Cecil B. DeMille. Nowhere else have so many people who sought fame and immortality in life been brought together in death. Not surprisingly, this final resting place of Filmland's giants has been disturbed by a startling array of ghostly phenomena. Even though haunted graveyards are said to be quite rare.
I would say that by and large, it is unusual for ghosts or spirits to hang around the cemetery. It really had nothing to do with their life, and yet there are stories of several ghosts being seen at this cemetery on a regular basis.
The most mysterious sightings occur inside the Gothic stone and marble monuments, like the Cathedral Mausoleum. Inside the chilling edifice, darkness looms and stone faces stare into eternity, as if watching over the earthly remains that are buried in these walls. Among them is one of Hollywood's first great screen legends, Rudolph Valentino.
It's hard to imagine in today's world how he could have been thought of to be this enormous, giant, larger-than-life person. And we are now used to stars, but not then. That was a new phenomenon, the movie business. And here was this incredibly handsome, dashing fellow who ended so tragically, and when they were supposed to be immortal.
Valentino's career was cut short in 1926 when he died of peritonitis. He was only 31 years old. He appeared in more than 30 films during his short career and was the silver screen's first male sex symbol. The day of his funeral was later called the day Hollywood wept.
The cemetery had to hold back the crowds here at this gate. Then there were 5,000 inside, and every major celebrity of the period was there, because I think this brought mortality even to his contemporary stars, you know, that this could happen.
Among the thousands of Valentino's mourners who came that day, one made mourning Valentino her life's work, the mysterious Lady in Black.
Every day she would come to Valentino's crypt with fresh flowers, and she would care for it, cleaning the bronze nameplate, shooing away people that weren't devout followers of Valentino, and just making sure that everything in the general area of his gravesite was perfect. And she mourned, and she mourned, and she mourned, day after day, for years.
To this day, her true identity is not known. Since she never spoke or lifted her veil in public view, some speculated that she was silent film actress Pola Negri, who was known to be Valentino's mistress. What is certain is that 75 years later, an indistinct image of the Lady in Black still appears in the cathedral mausoleum.
There are many theories about what ghosts are. Some people believe that energy in a spot repeats almost like an endless video loop over and over again. If ever there was fodder for energy to be repeated, for a spirit to be seen in the same spot carrying on the same activity, it would be the Lady in Black's spirit in front of Rudy's grave. And indeed, there are some people who claim to have seen a vision of a Lady in Black near his crypt.
But Valentino's final resting place is only one of several haunted sites at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. The Cathedral of Psalms mausoleum is reportedly swarming with the ghosts of Hollywood's past.
This is Clifton Webb's grave, and if I remember, it's a little loose.
Clifton Webb played a dapper, sophisticated character in countless Hollywood classics. His career began at the end of the silent movie era and continued until 1962. Best known for his Academy Award-winning performances in the movies Laura and Sitting Pretty. He grew increasingly disapproving of the state of Hollywood toward the end of his life. Webb never married and was known as the Irritable Bachelor by the time he died in 1966. Perhaps fearful of being forgotten, he is reputed to have haunted his Beverly Hills home for years.
When his house was torn down, he had no other place to go to be remembered. So he came here, where he's buried, where perhaps those people that do remember Clifton come to visit his grave. And some of those people have said that they see his spirit walking the long corridor near his crypt, checking on things, perhaps still disapproving of people and Hollywood and how memories are tarnished here.
Memories. Some believe these are the things that Hollywood hauntings are made of. Others say, watch, and you too may see a phantom performance. Darkness at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery brings the supernatural even closer. Strange forms appear to move among the grave sites. Images, shapes, and shadows swirl in the mist that settles in Hollywood on chilly winter nights. Disembodied sounds emanate and eerie specters are seen near this modest gravesite. The burial plot of actress Virginia Rapay.
Virginia Rapay, who is reportedly haunting the Hollywood Cemetery, was a very troubled spirit. She was a troubled woman during her career and life. She was known in some circles as being an absolute outright prostitute in Hollywood. The casting couch, more or less, was built around, you might say, Virginia Rapay's activities.
An obscure silent film starlet in life, it was the scandal surrounding her death that made her immortal. It was 1921. Silent film comedian Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle was still charming the nation as one of the great Hollywood entertainers. One night Arbuckle threw a party in honor of his new contract with Paramount Studios, a party that Virginia Rapay attended. But during the evening, Virginia became ill and suddenly died. A scandal erupted, and Arbuckle was accused of raping the young starlet and crushing her with his 266-pound girth.
Roscoe was eventually indicted for murder, murdering this actress. He was a very gentle man. He definitely didn't do this. And he did go to trial, 2 trials to be exact, and eventually was acquitted of this whole mess. But it destroyed his career, and to this day it's still one of the most famous examples of a career being destroyed by a scandal in Hollywood.
The 25-year-old actress was interred at the cemetery in 1921.
Her boyfriend paid for her gravesite here at Hollywood Forever, and it was probably the only plot of land in Hollywood poor Virginia Rapp ever could call her own.
Although she is buried here, it is not a final resting place.
It's interesting to note that she is still reportedly seen, an apparition of her still seen around her grave, being unsettled as it is.
In the end, Rapay's only success in Hollywood was in ruining Fatty Arbuckle's life.
Perhaps because of that reason, some people say that they have seen Virginia Rapp's spirit as a white translucent figure floating above her headstone. Others have even said they have heard her sobbing, or they have heard the sounds of crying near her gravesite.
Sadness, regret, despair, and unfinished lives. These are the stuff of Hollywood legends and hauntings. When we return, step into the speakeasy where Marilyn still waits for Joe DiMaggio, and an indifferent Valentino still stands, watching and waiting in haunted Hollywood.
We now return to haunted history.
Spirits of Hollywood's undead. Chilling messages from the other side. To visit the famed Hollywood Knickerbocker Hotel is to step into their netherworld. A place where shadows and legends from the past swirl together to frighten and astonish. For 75 years, the hotel's star-studded guest list has run the gamut from Elvis Presley and Frank Sinatra to Milton Berle and the Three Stooges.
The Hollywood Knickerbocker not only was a hotel, it was a gathering place for the Hollywood elite. It was the place where people like Jesse Lasky of Paramount and others would hold studio parties. It was really a Hollywood hotspot.
The hotel is still a gathering place, but now patrons believe that it is a portal for Hollywood's ghosts.
But I definitely felt something, some kind of an aura, some kind of being that was there that did not want me there in any particular fashion whatsoever.
I saw a ghost, a lady ghost, long dress. She looked like in her 60s. What happened is I looked to my right and I saw an old lady go through the corner and out the wall.
Built in 1925 during Prohibition, the Knickerbocker catered to a high society clientele that gathered nightly in the speakeasy to drink and rendezvous.
During the golden days, when this was a bar, people like Valentino would ride his horse down from the Ivar Hills, and Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio used to honeymoon here and frequent it.
The Knickerbocker was a mecca for show business glamour, but the hotel has also been the scene of tragedy. Silent film director D.W. Griffith spent his final days here. Although he is credited with inventing cinematic standards like fade-outs, fade-ins, close-ups, and moving camera shots, the director of the groundbreaking film Birth of a Nation saw his fame fade before he retreated to the hotel to live out his life.
He died in 1948 in July underneath the chandelier in the lobby of the Knickerbocker Hotel. He would come and drink here at the bar, and then one day he just managed to drag himself to the lobby and just collapsed.
William Frawley, better known as Fred Mertz on the I Love Lucy series, died on the hotel steps in 1966. Then there was the MGM costume designer, Irene, who checked into the hotel when her marriage failed in 1962.
She flung herself out of the 11th floor bathroom window here at the Knickerbocker, and she laid unnoticed for 2 days on the canopy. She left a suicide note to the hotel guests apologizing for any inconvenience her death might have caused them.
Perhaps it is the bittersweet combination of history and tragedy that draws so many disembodied souls to the comfort of the hotel's old speakeasy. Now called the All-Star Cafe, it is operated as a coffee house. Although spirits are not served here any longer, apparently they still like to visit.
Lights go off and on, cups rattle around in the sink when there's no cups, books get moved all by themselves. I see shadows, hot spots, cold spots, you name it. There's a lot of activity.
Rudolph Valentino, the Italian-born silent film heartthrob, is among the most legendary of the Knickerbocker's ghostly visitors.
People have seen Valentino's ghost here, several people, and right over in front of me was the original entrance to the bar. And people have seen Valentino's ghost here, several people, and right over in front of me was the original entrance to the bar, and they see him in a dapper suit with his arms crossed looking down.
Strangely, it is in the speakeasy's restrooms where most patrons are likely to experience the supernatural. Jennifer Alibart is a regular at the cafe.
So I walked into the bathroom, ladies' room, just to take care of my business. I wasn't trying to do anything else. I opened the door, and off to my left, about the vanity, I see like a white cloud or mist, like a bright light. Very pretty.
Many believe that this room is haunted by Marilyn Monroe, whose fond memories of the Knickerbocker Hotel prompt her regular visitations.
I didn't see a face. It would have been awesome if I did, though. Then I would be for sure that it was Marilyn Monroe, it was her, it was a female. Then I could truly tell you that it was her.
So many unusual visions and phenomena have been reported here that in 1997, parapsychologist and Hollywood ghost hunter Larry Montz was invited by the management to investigate.
We find that the reports that people tell us about a lot of famous actors and actresses, it's just like Marilyn Monroe. And it's kind of funny because she had blonde hair, and of course when someone sees an apparition of a blonde, they automatically assume, well, it must be Marilyn Monroe.
Skeptical of these reports, Montz and a team of investigators believed they could locate the source of the ghostly activity and identify it. 3 years later, Montz has returned with test equipment to confirm his results.
Yeah, see, something's right here. It's very cold right here. Temperature's still going down. This is the magnetometer, and this device measures electromagnetic energy fields that sometimes a ghost or an entity generates.
What Dr. Montz and his team found at the hotel was startling.
The Knickerbocker Hotel is haunted. And as we conducted an investigation with the team, we found that it is very active. As a matter of fact, 2 clairvoyant team investigators ID'd an individual standing by the women's bathroom, and it seemed to be a female from around the 1940s. And then briefly after she showed up, another female showed up, and they were standing next to one another.
Who were they, and why did they come to Hollywood? Their identities remain shrouded in mystery. What appears certain is that the Knickerbocker Hotel is a magnet for ghosts. Even in its heyday, the Knickerbocker, the tallest building in Hollywood then, was thought to be the focus of unusual power that could unlock the mystery of death. This was the place chosen by a grieving widow when she tried desperately to make contact with her late husband, Harry Houdini.
Mrs. Houdini, known as Bess, would hold seances here at the Knickerbocker Hotel from 1926 to 1936, trying to communicate with her dead husband, Harry Houdini. There was a pact between them two to hold a seance every year on their anniversary of his death.
Shortly before he died in 1926, at the age of 53, the legendary magician and escape artist had prepared the ultimate trick: to communicate from beyond the grave.
The seances that Houdini's wife had at the Hollywood Knickerbocker Hotel pretty much were close friends and a few, I would say, clairvoyants who would help to bring possibly his spirit back to them. She was always trying to make contact with her husband because her husband always told her that after his death he would always try to make contact with his wife somehow, and really told her and taught her how to do these seances.
The Houdinis had devised a secret code known only to them that Harry would use to reach his wife from the afterlife. During a seance held at the Knickerbocker in 1936, Bess Houdini believed that she received one word of the code from her late husband.
The secret code word between them was Rosabelle, her maiden name, and it was written in her wedding band ring.
The seances ended with Mrs. Houdini's death. But for the Knickerbocker Hotel, the legend had only just begun. When we return, explore the darkest reaches of Movieland's oldest and most haunted studio.
We now return to haunted history.
The dark underside of Hollywood. This is where spirits can be seen and even touched by a few. But where do ghosts come from? The answer is from life. Ever since the first director yelled, "Roll 'em," the heartbeat of Hollywood has come from its movie studios. This is where dreams were made, where actors were immortalized as movie stars, and others waited for a starring role that never came. It is not surprising that one of the oldest studios in Hollywood is also the most haunted. This is Raleigh Studios. Located on Melrose Avenue, it has been a Hollywood landmark since it opened in 1915. Its 85-year history reaches from the silent movie era to the present. Screen legends like Douglas Fairbanks, Mary Pickford, and Charlie Chaplin all worked here. So did Betty Davis, Joan Crawford, and John Garfield. But the phantoms of Raleigh Studios don't appear to be Hollywood greats. Unlike other Hollywood hauntings, Raleigh Studios is haunted by the forgotten ones. The first reports began inside Stage 5, a building that dates from 1926. It was after the production of an early talking picture that a lone electrician climbed onto the catwalk, 35 feet above the floor. No one really knows what happened next, but that day, the stagehand fell to his death.
Since that time, Stage 5 has been haunted to the rafters. There have been reports of odd goings-on in that stage for over 65 years.
Parapsychologist Barry Taff investigated reports that the stage was haunted in 1994 and gained a psychic impression of the circumstances surrounding the death.
I felt myself falling to the back and left, and it didn't feel like I was pushed. It felt like I lost my balance or I slipped, and just suddenly tremendous pain in the legs and the lumbar region of the back that was disabling. And I just wanted to get out of the room as quickly as possible. It was very uncomfortable.
In addition to Taft's experience, the stage managers have reported a long list of strange occurrences here.
They were shutting the lights, etc. And right before they shut the light and walked out the door, they heard a voice coming from the catwalk. They thought, oh no, we might have locked someone in here. And they looked up to the catwalk. Nobody was up there, but the big work light, which weighed at least 300 pounds, was swinging. And I mean really swinging big.
As he prepared to leave, one stagehand turned out the lights, but they came back on by themselves. Moments later, he returned to the stage, only to find the lights going on and off, as if being switched by someone or something. More paranormal activity has been reported at the studio's Mexican cantina, which was once part of a Western movie set.
It is haunted by the ghost of a woman. She is seen passing through the cantina, and she's wearing very old-fashioned clothes, but the people who have seen her do not feel she is from the era of the clothing she is wearing. They feel that she's an actress in costume coming from the building next door, which used to be dressing rooms, and passing through the cantina on her way to the soundstage to work.
To this day, the woman's identity remains unknown.
But of course, remember, we've had women actresses here at the studio since 1914 working here. But we don't know of any that have died here on the lot. But it's possible it could have happened.
This lady may be one of those poor souls who came to Hollywood seeking fame and fortune and is still on the job seeking fame and fortune.
The office building that housed studio dressing rooms in 1926 is reportedly home to more specters from Hollywood's past. When parapsychologist Larry Montz visited the office building, he came face to face with one of its unearthly residents.
I saw a man standing at the end of the hallway. He seemed to be dressed in kind of like worker clothes, a stagehand type of person. And he stood there and just stared at me for a couple of seconds and then turned around and walked away. And when I ran down the hallway to see if I could find this person, he was gone.
Even for an experienced ghost hunter, the vision was startling.
And I stood there for a few minutes and had chills up my back, and I knew that it wasn't a residual haunting where you just see an image over and over again. This was a conscious person that was standing in front of me.
Their names and lives have seemingly been forgotten, yet they haunt this studio, wandering its stages and corridors as if trying to remind us once they were here. When we return, visit the restaurant where Gable and Lombard still dine in haunted Hollywood.
We now return to haunted history.
It's no secret that Hollywood stars in the 1930s enjoyed glamour, fame, and all the trappings of wealth. But the cost of the good life was often their privacy. To escape the pressures of stardom, celebrities quickly discovered nearby Santa Monica, a quiet seaside resort town that promised relaxation, just a short ride away from the studios. They often stayed in a classic Art Deco style hotel called the Georgian.
People from Hollywood used to like to come to the Georgian Hotel to escape the heat. People such as Fatty Arbuckle and Clark Gable would come for the weekend, and a lot of Hollywood bosses would come and stay for 2 or 3 days to get away.
The hotel was a hideout for mobster Bugsy Siegel and a trysting place for one of Hollywood's favorite couples.
Carol Lombard and Clark Gable, this was kind of a little hideaway for them, and they could come and kind of be anonymous and have their little weekend away.
Now the staff not only caters to Hollywood types of today, but to a few left over from its star-studded past. Much of the ghostly activity occurs in the hotel's restaurant, where phantoms return not to haunt, but seemingly to play tricks and enjoy the afterlife. Inside this windowless room, where images of Hollywood's most legendary faces line the walls and fuel the imagination, ghosts are reported on a regular basis. Ignacio Chosa, the hotel's chief engineer, heard voices coming from the dining room at 5 in the morning.
I thought it was a meeting, but then I thought, no, how could it be a meeting at this hour in the morning? So I just went inside, and then I got scared. When I opened the door, I didn't see anything until I stepped, in. Then I could see faded figures dressed up on off-white. It seems that they were just having dinner, lunch, or whatever time there was for them, But I got really scared, I didn't go inside. I just walked out.
Hotel employees often have the opportunity to greet guests who aren't really there.
Voices.
One time I was in the kitchen and I heard somebody say, "Good morning," from the dining room area. So I answered, "Good morning." And they said, "Good morning" again. Nobody responded. So I walked out into the dining room and there was nobody there. I was very scared. I felt the hair on my arms stand up on end. I tried not to pay it too much mind because I didn't want to scare myself too much.
The experiences are ongoing and always unexpected.
I can hear footsteps. I've heard people snapping their fingers.
Sometimes the workers are shocked by ghosts that scurry and rush.
I saw a dark figure run in very hard. I could hear the footsteps on the floor, and they ran past me and ran to the south side of the restaurant, and then out the first door. See anything.
Morning, because I always like to start early in the morning. And I sweep up the steps as you go out of the restaurant. I have already finished cleaning up, and I went to get some other tools that I needed to do the cleaning.
But as Ignacio turned, the leaves he had just vacuumed up mysteriously reappeared. Once again he swept up the debris, but as soon as he finished his cleanup and turned away, the lead. James Diasamito.
Maybe a housekeeper dropped it by mistake, so I put it on the side of the hallway. I moved it from exactly where I moved it from. So I'm looking side to side in the hallway, really kind of tripping out on how that salt shaker got back to where it was. So I moved it again and put it exactly on the side of the hallway where I first placed it, and I came back downstairs.
At the end of his shift, James reported that he checked a third time, only to find the wood. They are the backbone of a continent. Boulder-strewn slopes and towering granite peaks that have lured adventurers walks and reluctant to them. Stories of the supernatural. Prospectors laid open the sides of. In the early 1860s, fortune awaited at least a few men in the hills near Buckskin Joe, Colorado.
The town got its name from a man named Joseph Higginbottom, who wore buckskins, and he was kind of grubby and scruffy looking, and they called him Buckskin Joe. And he actually disappeared later on. He had a mine and a claim, and he sold it for some food and a pistol and wandered off to another mining camp somewhere.
Higginbottom may have given up hope in his claim, but other prospectors held out and eventually struck it rich. Over the next years, hundreds of men from all walks of life descended on Buckskin Joe. When the mines eventually played out, the prospectors moved on, and Buckskin Joe became a ghost town. Most of its structures either decayed and crumbled, or were cannibalized for building materials. In 1957, a group of investors decided to resurrect the town and make it a tourist attraction. But they relocated it to the vicinity of the Royal Gorge, 90 miles southeast, to tie it in with other visitor sites. The entrepreneurs reconstructed the town by bringing in suitable historic structures from other locations across the state.
I don't want none of your coffee. Why not? Because it tastes like mud.
Today, Buckskin Joe employs actors for Wild West shows and reenactments. Not surprisingly, in a town made up of authentic period buildings, each with its own dramatic and sometimes tragic history, Buckskin Joe employees have for years reported ghost sightings and strange occurrences.
There are weird things that happen here. Our staff reports a lot of weird things, and the interesting thing is each generation, each new season of staff, they tend to see and report the same kinds of things. So it's fairly consistent. Lights go on and off. You'll hear things moving around upstairs, and in the theater with the magic show, things will be strewn all around, and they left it very tidy before.
One afternoon, Paula Proud, a Buckskin Joe general manager, drove through the front gate and happened to look toward the Sackett House Hotel.
And there was a lady in a blue dress standing there, and I actually thought it was our boss, and was dressed in period clothing, beautiful blue dress, and she just looked like she was watching the actors practice and rehearse. I parked the truck, went in, came into town, went looking for my boss, talked to the people that were in town, and they said that she hadn't been here all day, and made me have goosebumps and the hair on the back of my neck stand up.
But perhaps the most haunted structure in Buckskin Joe is a barn that in its former life was used for public hangings. In the winter months, the building also stored bodies for burial after the thaw. Today, this structure houses a restaurant, a theater, 2 saloons, and an ice cream parlor. One evening, some of the Buckskin Joe staff members and gunfighter reenactors stayed after hours to have a drink in the Silver Dollar Saloon.
One of them who lived up here had his little girl with him, and she went around the corner to use the restroom, and when she came back, she told her dad that she had seen a gunfighter.
No one else had left the group, and when the father checked, the restrooms in adjacent area were empty. In the ice cream parlor next door, Marisa Sharp encountered a similar apparition. After closing the shop late one afternoon, Marisa stood washing dishes with her back to the front door.
And I looked in the mirror, and a guy walked in. Black hair, black shirt and pants and boots and a hat. And I turned around, and there wasn't anybody there. So I went back to my business and started cleaning again. I turned around to the mirror, and he was still standing there. And then I asked him to leave, and I watched him walk out of the room through the mirror.
But gunfighters aren't the only ghostly inhabitants of the former hanging barn. One winter morning, the head cook entered the building at 5 a.m. to relight a fire that had gone out overnight.
He felt the hairs on the back of his neck just stand up and a big chill go down his spine. And he looked up, and just off in the distance from the saloon, he saw this miner guy that was very, very mean, he said. He just got a really evil feeling from him. Then he went back to kind of lighting the fire and pretending like, oh, he's not here, because he was really scared about it. And he looked back up again, and he saw him a second time, and then he said, oh, it's time to get out of the building. So he just turned around and left. Didn't look back again.
Vicky Casey herself had a strange experience in the kitchen of this building one morning. Filling in for a cook who had called in sick, she stood working with her back to the grills.
I was prepping lettuce or tomatoes, and the grills, all of a sudden, I heard them turn on. And they make a very distinctive sound. It's crackling because you're turning on metal and heating it up. And I hesitantly looked around to see that one of the grills actually had been turned on. And you can tell that because the light was on. Nobody else in the room, nobody walking in or out. No apparent reason why that happened.
Laurie Clouden is a clairvoyant who specializes in healing homes and other structures in which beings are trapped. She believes the former hanging barn at Buckskin Joe is rife with spirits.
If we think about what happened in that barn, people knowing they were going to die, the actual death experience, the levels of fear and pain that people were emoting were tremendous. It creates almost a soup in that building. And in turn, these beings may or may not be fully leaving the earth realm. And in turn, these beings may or may not be fully leaving the earth realm when they leave their bodies. There's a reason they were hung. They either committed some kind of crime or they were scapegoated. Neither one is an easy scenario to let go of into spirit. The barn really should have been burned. It's the quickest way to dissipate that energy.
But the barn wasn't burned, and the ghosts of men who met agonizing death within its walls continue to make their anger felt. Buckskin Joe is not the only place in southern Colorado where spirits are said to dwell. An hour north, nestled at the base of Pikes Peak, sits the tiny community of Manitou Springs. Once a mecca for spiritual renewal, some early residents, long deceased, still refuse to depart.
We now return to haunted history.
Long before white settlers ever set foot in the Rocky Mountains, Native Americans revered Manitou Springs as a place of spiritual and physical healing. The springs that bubble from the ground in the area contain curative minerals.
That's what really drew people to Manitou first, was its mineral springs, and it started with the Native Americans. They recognized the healing properties of the springs. They come down Ute Pass, which is now Highway 24, to use the waters for rejuvenating their spirits, for dealing with illnesses. And naturally, as the Anglos moved into the valley, they saw the springs, saw what was happening with them, and decided to develop a community around the mineral springs.
By the late 1880s, with the Ute Indians long ago driven from the area, Manitou Springs had become a health resort for wealthy Easterners suffering from tuberculosis and other ailments.
Tuberculosis was the most common health problem in the Victorian age. The food was bad, the air was bad. Big city life was very unhealthy, and many people had tuberculosis. This area was fairly underdeveloped. The air was pure, it was clean, the water was fresh and clear, and it was a perfect place to recover from tuberculosis, and a lot of people came out here just for that reason.
Bostonian Emma Crawford, a tuberculosis sufferer herself, made extended visits to the springs each year with her mother and sister. An accomplished pianist, Emma cheerfully entertained the people of Manitou with concerts and offered piano lessons to children. Emma was also an ardent spiritualist. She often took walks in the mountains surrounding Manitou Springs to enjoy nature and seek advice from the spirit world.
Emma Crawford used to love to hike in the mountains. She wore a red dress. Many citizens noticed her climbing the hills, even though she had tuberculosis, which must have been difficult for her. And she loved Red Mountain most of all. In fact, she renamed it Red Chief Mountain because she was an advocate for the Native Americans, and so she would climb Red Mountain, or Red Chief Mountain, and try and commune with some of the Native American spirits.
By 1891, Emma had met and fallen in love with Wilhelm Hildenbrand, an engineer sent to Manitou to help construct a railroad. The couple would often climb Red Mountain to plan their future. On one such visit, overwhelmed with the beauty of the place, Emma asked Hildenbrand to bury her on that hilltop should she succumb to her disease and die before he did. She feared graveyards and wished to be buried high in the sunshine and pure air.
He said he would, not thinking that he would ever have to do that. Unfortunately, on December the 4th, while he was away back east, she did die from a sudden illness, and he arrived the day after she died.
Grief-stricken, the young engineer and his associates carried Emma's coffin to the top of Red Mountain. and buried her there. But Emma's repose in the peaceful mountain clearing was soon cut short. Within a decade, a developer obtained permission to construct an incline to take tourists to the top of Red Mountain. The lift would terminate on Emma's burial site. With no one around to stop it, Wilhelm Hildenbrand had returned to the East Coast many years before. The developer exhumed Emma's casket and hastily reburied it on the opposite side of the mountain. But the coffin wouldn't rest there forever.
After years of wear and tear from the natural elements, wind, rain, ice, melting, freezing, Emma's coffin, what was left of it, the handles, the nameplate, and her remains washed off the mountain and were found by some local town boys.
Authorities gathered Emma's bones, and after a futile search for any surviving family members, they reburied her remains in the town cemetery. The incline up Red Mountain no longer exists, and the only access to the top today is by foot. For some of those who make the ascent, Emma is there to greet them.
A lot of people have said they have seen Emma up on the slopes of Red Mountain. We all think it's because she's not very happy in the cemetery. It's not a place she'd want to be. So she's trying to get back to Red Mountain, and that's where people have seen her.
Some say Emma also shows herself at the Crawford House in town. Recently restored, this is the home in which she and her family lived during their stays in Manitou Springs.
The people who were restoring it had many experiences with Emma Crawford. She was apparently a benevolent presence in the house, but a presence nonetheless. She used to play her piano quite often, and that was a pleasant thing. But she also used to appear in windows and doors when they least expected it, which was kind of startling for them.
Today, the people of Manitou cherish the memory of Emma Crawford and think of her as a benign spirit watching over them. As an odd but fun tribute to her life, each year squads of costume competitors hold coffin races through the streets of town. John Channon founded the races in 1995.
I was reading some history about Manitou Springs and found the Emma story. And at the time I was working with the Chamber of Commerce, and we were trying to come up with special events. And I thought this story would involve some Manitou history. It would be a fun event, and it would be something so outrageous that the press couldn't ignore it.
Here they come!
Right after we organized the first race, we got a picture of Emma. And after seeing that face, I started to have some different feelings about what we were doing to the memory of this very interesting person. I walked from my house up Red Mountain a couple of mornings early just to try and find out if I could feel any opinions on Emma's part as to whether or not we should be doing this, and I didn't get any negative feedback, so I assumed it was all right.
Best coffin design, very cool. And best Emma.
I would like to see Emma Crawford buried on the top of the hill where she asked to be buried when she was alive. This woman was a wonderful woman. She was a spiritualist. She was quite intuitive. She was very loving, and still is as a spirit, as a being, who made a specific request that she wanted in death, and that request was granted. But then, with the movement of the body, that was just such a tragic betrayal of her intentions in life. So I'd really like to see her remains, if it's at all possible, moved back to where she asked them to be, and that site may be set aside with her name on it. This would help her a lot. I see her as enjoying the people of town. She loves that town. She's not there maliciously, yet I see her unable to move away from there. And the movement of her body would really be helpful that way. And the movement of her body would really be helpful that way.
But even if they are never able to move Emma's remains back to her beloved hilltop, the people of Manitou Springs will continue to celebrate the kind and gentle spirit of Emma Crawford. On the opposite base of Pikes Peak, in a once famous mining town, an historic frontier hotel holds the spirit of another young woman trapped in the earthly realm.
Now return to haunted history.
In 1890, cowboy and part-time prospector Bob Womack discovered gold on the western slope of Pikes Peak. He found it near a rocky stream called Cripple Creek, so named by local ranchers because of the hazard the rocks in the water presented to the crossing livestock. Womack hurried down to Colorado Springs to drum up investment money for construction of a mine.
Nobody really believed him because he was kind of a booze hound. But he finally proved that there was gold here, and had a claim that was turned out to be worth millions of dollars, that he sold for about $500, and a jug of whiskey, I believe.
In a few short years, miners were pulling millions of dollars worth of gold from the site. The town of Cripple Creek sprang up nearby to house, feed, and entertain the workers. By 1900, Cripple Creek boasted 500 mines, 139 saloons, 8 newspapers, 40 grocery stores, 15 hotels, and the 4th highest population in the state of Colorado.
There were actually more millionaires, it said, created in the gold rush to Cripple Creek than there was in the whole gold rush to California.
But the boom didn't last forever. With the coming of World War I, it waned almost as quickly as it began.
By that time, the shafts were getting deeper, and it was harder to get down. They had a water problem, pumping the water out of the shafts. The standard of living was going up while the price of gold wasn't. And of course, a lot of the boys were then called in to fight.
Enough unexplained things happened. Bounced off the stool and landed on the floor. I reached down and scooped it off the floor, and lo and behold,
I went out
1880
that he had put in for the company, and so they became fabulously wealthy.
With her newfound in 1894, Molly convinced her reluctant husband to leave the mountain, frequent and well attended, but she never quite garnered the acceptance of Denver society. Molly's death, the Brown Mansion in Denver changed.
Psychics going through the place have found all sorts. No smoking policy in the house. People swear that they go.
The whole vibration around him of sadness and how things might have been different. We could feel him in the bedroom upstairs and also in the room that used to be.
That was checking her hat in the hall stand, and you can see the stairs behind it. And as we occasionally have Victorian eating experiences, and people come in for dinners.
It's a ghost. And I turned the corner and saw the window was open, and I was a little bit disappointed. Oh, I missed.
No one can be certain of the identity of this female spirit. Some speculate that it is in fact Molly. Her staff members agree that this female spirit is a helpful presence, one that still holds great affection for this century and made famous in the 1970s by Stephen King's novel The Shining. Many believe that ghosts of a bygone era still roam the hall. With a steam car and previous inventions, the Stanley brothers made a fortune. But at age 54, F.O. Stanley contracted 6 months. Like many of his day who suffered from lung ailments, Stanley lured artists, writers, photographers, and naturalists from around the world. £50. He knew then that the place would save his life. Stanley made plus could not legally make homestead claims. In 1906, F.O. Stanley, now the owner of land once claimed by Dunraven.
Board, he builds and owns outright. Painful process of modernization, and he did it in a relatively short period of time. And if you can imagine, when he's done, he's also ready to finish building his Grand Resort Hotel.
The Stanley Hotel opened its visited it, but many on the hotel staff today believe that Mrs. Stanley, several of the guests.
I was working on some paperwork at the front desk and felt that there was somebody watching me. I felt so I just continued about my business, continued to work on my paperwork, and a few minutes later looked up. I lifted my eyes rather than lifting my head, and I saw a family. He was just standing there watching me work. At that point, once I...
And several employees have heard music coming from her piano when no one was near it.
There's been a number of times where...
He went into room 418, checked the room, it looked great. He walked out, locked the door, and when he was
For instance, her husband put his wedding ring down on the sink. The wedding ring went off the sink and went down the drain. She called engineering. They came up and got it out, and it happened again. Saying, "He sent me." He had an older suit on, and he just stood there, and that's where the cherry tobacco smell was coming from.
Inflict a measure of retribution.
I see him as a little bit in avoidance of looking at something else. Was competition.
This time from the low-lying metropolis of Denver to the high country hamlets of Cripple Creek and Estes Park, the souls of pioneers, some filled with bittersweet longing, some racked with disappointment and regret, still linger in the haunted Rockies.
I have a talent to play.
Is employees of the federal government. When visiting Washington, every student of American history feels the spirit of our nation's past.
Greatest haunted.
Some observe Abigail returns to the White House still today.
It wasn't completed when the Adams moved in and as the place and realized that the East Room seemed to be the driest place.
Madison was known throughout the district for her lavish social gatherings. She is best known today for her legendary ghostly appearance to White House gardeners.
Roses needed to be moved. So she sent a couple of gardeners out to pull up the roses, move them to another spot. So they set about their work, and imagine their horror as they see Dolly Madison in the clothes of a time gone by appear and descending upon them like
Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands, back in the 1940s, was visiting FDR. She was staying in the Queen's room. She shocked people at a cocktail party one evening by relating the fact that last evening she was awakened from her sleep and went to the door and opened the door shortly after midnight. And lo and behold, there was Abraham standing in the doorway of the Queen's room. And the Queen promptly admitted that she fainted dead away and had spent most of the night in a faint on the floor. And that's why she looked rather peaked that evening at the cocktail party.
But the spiritual experiences do not stop at the White House gates. In buildings immediately surrounding the president's home, other ghostly presences have been felt and seen. Natural splendor was originally built in 1816 by Colonel John Taylor. It took on the name Willard in 1850, place of Washington. As it became known in later years, the Willard was the most prominent residence for guests,
for this and that.
The residence of presidents, and many modern-day visitors claim to have felt the Ulysses S. Grant in the Willard lobby. Grant's spirit, however, seems to identify itself not as a vision, but as the aroma of his fine cigars. If there is one figure whose spirit appears most prominently and repeatedly in Washington, it is that of Dolly Madison. Among Washington insiders, it was no secret 4 sailors that the British charged were deserters from the Royal Navy. Decatur exchanged duel. A young man with a bright political future, Decatur found himself torn between the need to defend his honor and the need for self-preservation.
There was this in those days where if somebody called you out to a duel, you were obligated, really, to accept it. And if you didn't, you were subject to quite a lot of criticism and a lowering of that level of honor and prestige. So Decatur really, despite the fact that he was very clear about his reluctance to go forward with this, felt probably that he just could not afford to allow Barron to have attacked him or criticized him in this way or called him out to a duel and not have accepted the challenge.
In the early morning hours of March 22nd, 1820, Stephen Decatur slipped out of his home without informing his wife of his destination. At Bladensburg, Maryland, a common location for such duels, Decatur met James Barron. Because Barron was nearsighted, Decatur agreed for the firing distance to be only 10 paces. It was decided that as one of their seconds counted to 3, each man could fire no earlier than 1, no later than 3.
Both
Decatur died. Ever since Stephen Decatur's death, there have been reported sightings of his spirit, Barron's challenge to duel. Others claim to have seen the specter of Decatur slipping out the back door of his home, just as he did the morning of his death. Decatur Museum director Paul Reber has yet to actually see the captain's ghost, but not for a lack of desire.
I've been here many a time late at night, and to tell you the truth, I have so many questions for him that I'd really like to run into him. So I hope some days he does sort of show up so I can have a little conversation with him and make our research project here a lot easier.
Tragic, untimely deaths seem to have a way of bringing spirits back to life. But the White House and its surrounding area are by no means the exclusive environs for Washington's ghostly legends. At the corner of 18th Street and New York Avenue stands a structure called the Octagon, with its own fascinating cast of characters and legendary ghostly past.
We now return to Haunted History. We now return to Haunted History.
From an architectural perspective, the Octagon is one of Washington, D.C.'s most unique structures.
In the 1800s, end of the 1700s, people called...
The Octagon was designed for Colonel John Taylor III, the same man who first owned the Willard Hotel property. Taylor and his wife Anne had 15 children. During the War of 1812, when the British were destroying much of Washington, Taylor and his family vacated the property. But as a result of crafty planning on Taylor's part, the Octagon was not harmed
in their home, which he did, and he actually sent a message to the general who was burning the White House at that very moment and declared this French territory because he was living here, and received the reassurance that the British would not burn the house down.
At the conclusion of the war, President Madison and his wife Dolly made the Octagon their home, while the White House was reconstructed. There, Dolly held legendary social events.
Dolly Madison was very well known for her parties, and she would have soirees. And it was said here that she would position herself in front of the Codestone mantelpiece where people would come by and greet her and just have ongoing parties. I'm not sure how often or how wild they got. I don't know anything about that, but it certainly were parties that were well known.
Today, the Octagon serves as a museum for the American Architectural Foundation. Befitting such an honor, the interior of the building is filled with unique elements, including a magnificent spiral staircase. Washington folklorists claim that the staircase is haunted by the spirits of 2 former residents.
Of the 15 children the Taylors had, 2 of their daughters are said to have died in the Octagon. One of those daughters had fallen in love with someone the colonel didn't approve of. A very heated argument. It grieved the colonel immensely, according to the legend. Even today, there are those who wall from the stairway, and they could hear the screams and the thuds of the young woman falling to her death there in the Octagon.
Tragically, Colonel Taylor would lose a second daughter.
Having died in that particular fashion led to the colonel's untimely death at the age of 54.
Believers in the ghostly folklore of the Octagon claim that the second daughter also continues to demonstrate her presence in a most unusual way.
As the young woman fell to her death down the stairs and broke her neck. She landed on carpet at the foot of the stairs, and it turned over. The edge of it turned over. And some say that no matter how many times you turn that carpet over at the foot of the octagon stairs, an edge of it will still curl back up again.
Legends associated with the octagon describe the spirit of Dolly Madison standing and even dancing in front of the mantelpiece where she once greeted guests. Visitors have also smelled the fragrance of lilacs, Dolly's favorite perfume. But not all the octagon incidents that have provoked so-called hauntings are limited to the time of the Taylors and Madisons. In the mid to late 1800s, after the Taylor family had left the octagon, the building fell into a state of disrepair.
At that time, various types were living in the octagon. Among those types who lived in the octagon, old gambler had a particular spot that he liked up on the 3rd floor where he used to have a friendly game of cards from time to time. He was also particularly fascinated with the bell pull system in the octagon and would position his chair up close to the bell pull so that he could always summon another deck of cards, summon some liquor, or one of his cohorts.
The gambler, so the legend goes, was not the most honorable figure in Washington. In fact, he had a reputation for cheating. During one game, the gambler met his match. He was caught red-handed by a visitor, who immediately drew his weapon.
As the gambler fell to his death, he pulled on the bell, and even to this day, the sound of that bell pull is heard reverberating through the octagon from time to time.
Moss, the octagon, the first Secretary of the Navy, Benjamin Stoddard.
We now return to Haunted History.
Modern-day visitors to the Halcyon House in the Georgetown area of Washington are quite simply stunned by what they see.
Ja, kijkers, ik ga het even het pas bezetten. Starten. Hopelijk doet hij het wel. En dan komt hij. En dan doen we de koeien. Die kopen. Die hebben we gehad. Dan moet je een hoop nieuwe. En pak een andere. En wacht af. En we zijn weer van opnieuw opstarten. Dan gaan we kijken of het werkt. Nou kijk eens. Ik ga het even alles opnieuw opstarten. En dan zien jullie zo weer terug. Hopelijk blijven jullie kijken.